This is food. This is beans. So, Adrian, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. We watched it. We reviewed it on episode 106 of Split Focus Film and TV podcast. We did it in a way that, but we did it in a way that was kind of spoiler less. There was no spoilers in it. This is our spoiler full review of that same movie. I know you didn't love it. No. I liked the movie, but let's get into it, I guess. Again, spoilers are happening. So audience members, if you aren't, if you haven't watched the movie yet, you should probably go watch the movie first before you watch the spoiler review. Just saying. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't want to tell you what to do, but just saying. Yeah. So let's just get into it. I'm going to do a quick synopsis here, and then we'll just get into what we thought of the movie, and we can dive into the little nitty gritty spoilers that we wanted to talk about.
Sounds good to me, man.
The movie is basic in concept. Ant-Man and the gang. So you got Ant-Man, Hope Van Dyne, Hank Pym, and Janet Van Dyne. They get sucked in. And Cassie.
Yeah.
Yes, Ant-Man's daughter. They get sucked into the quantum realm with this faulty technology because they're trying to send a signal down there. So they get sucked in, and then they find out the quantum realm is a huge civilization run by Kang the Conqueror, who has taken over that whole quantum realm and has basically oppressed all the people who live there. And so they're not having a good time. But it turns out that Janet had more of a play in this situation down there than we had thought. She actually helped Kang kind of come to power, but then escaped. And then basically the whole movie is them trying to keep Kang the Conqueror down in the quantum realm because he was exiled there by his variants across the multiverse. That's basically the idea. So as opposed to it being a traditional heist movie like the first two movies were, it's basically Ant-Man and the gang not doing a heist, but trying to do a reverse heist, trying to keep Kang in the quantum realm. By the end of the movie, Kang the Conqueror is pretty powerful, but he gets defeated by 1,000-year-old ants. And the ants take him down, and that's kind of the only way they can overrun him is because they literally overrun him with like thousands of giant ants, which is fair. So it's a very weird, quirky idea. But he doesn't quite get defeated. He comes back, beats up Paul Rudd a little bit to show how powerful he really is. And then it turns out they go back home and they make it finally, and Kang the Conqueror gets sucked into his own machine, and he's in bad shape or he's in good shape. We have no idea where he is. And then there's, of course, a mid-credit scene where they show all the variants of Kang coming together in some kind of weird stadium, and they're like, I guess, having a Kang meeting, which is weird. And that's the scene I didn't love that much. And then we got the end credit scene where they show Kang with Owen Wilson's character and Loki at some kind of a weird theater event in the 1800s. Owen Wilson's character from Loki and Loki from Loki are watching him basically perform on stage.
Yeah, it's just a tease for the second season of Loki, essentially.
Right. Yeah. That pretty much sums up the movie in its entirety, I think, for the most part. And now we can go into the spoilery aspects that we didn't, again, talk about on 106. Yeah. What did you think of this movie, Adrian, for the audience that maybe didn't listen to episode 106 of Split Focus, a Film and TV podcast?
Yeah, for sure. So like I said in that episode, I feel like this movie is cut up a great deal. I almost feel like there was some sort of like meddling, a bunch of editing in post. The metaphor I use is that I feel like Peyton Reed, who's the director of this film, created a really nice sandwich, some nice pieces of bread, some nice, condiments, some vegetables, some salamis, and then someone walked over to that sandwich, opened it up, threw a bunch of that shit on the ground, and then put the sandwich back together and made something that's just not as good as it really could have been. Made it into what I would argue is almost a bad sandwich as opposed to a really great sandwich. You know what I mean?
A 1.5 out of 5 sandwich.
A 1.5 out of 5 sandwich. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like, think about it. You go to Jersey Mike's, Simon, you get a nice sandwich, and then just before they hand it to you, they open the sandwich and they just wipe off a bunch of that shit. That would be a 1.5 out of 5 sandwich, I would argue.
It's true. I don't think that that's what this movie is, but alas, we have differing opinions.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting because I think where this movie suffers the most, and I think you actually agree with this, is that I feel like it's a little bit too short, and there's a lot of characters that were introduced that were severely underdeveloped. The cast of characters that were introduced when like Scott and Cassie get to the quantum realm, I feel like they clearly had a larger role to play in like the larger movie, but they seemed to almost be cut out of the film, all like the middle part of the film, and only really be there at the start and at the end. There's even like a portion where there's this, badass warrior woman who you presume to be badass. And at the end of the movie, Cassie calls that warrior woman by her name. And they never say that warrior woman's name. There's no like portion where
You're
Cassie
sure
and
of
her.
this?
I'm like 99% sure. Like
What about the psychic guy? He has a name. I know that. Did he not call her by her name at one point?
I don't know, maybe, but it feels like it was very, like if it was just very quick, and I don't recall that ever happening. I think
they throw you into it. I didn't make the analogy here. I think I made it on episode 106. Well, I definitely didn't make it here. But it's like Star Wars in a way. Yeah. Like Star Wars: A New Hope, they kind of just throw you into the world and they kind of expect you to know some stuff, like a little bit, or they don't expect you to know it, but they're throwing you in and making you witness it. Is kind of the way I feel like this movie kind of played off. It's also more like Star Wars in that there's literally a Darth Vader type character who's running this empire. So there's that too, but he's a super powerful dude who's running his crazy, dictatorship.
Yeah, which is just kind of happening. But again, I think the issue with this is that I just don't really have any attachment to any of these characters. And even when these characters were in danger or they killed off one of them, I couldn't really care less, because it's just, I don't know anything about these guys. I don't even know their name. I think, what's the guy, the actor that plays, is it Jackson William Harper or something like that? Or am I making that up? The guy, he's in The Good Place, right? Yeah. And he has like the weird forehead thing that apparently he can read minds. But again, it's like an underutilized character. And although I think Kang was...
there's so many characters, though. It's just, they're all there. They're part of the resistance, Like, I agree with you. They could have given so much more room to like explaining the context of the quantum realm. Like, how did these people even get here? Were they born there? I don't understand. Does evolution make them kind of live there? We don't have that kind of context. I agree with you there. Like, there's missing 20 to 30 minutes of potential flashbacks or something to give us more context about who these people are, or how do they even live there? What do they eat? Like, I want to know that type of thing to make it feel a bit more real for me. But again, that's a crucial, it's less crucial than it is something that I would have thought would have made the movie a lot better. So the movie's not bad because it's missing that. It's just not as good. Like, who is Bill Murray's character? Like, come on. We need more context on what was how was he a rebel before? Because he's clearly a bad guy now.
Yeah.
He kind of got defeated really quickly. Like, that kind of thing. I feel like they're missing, I don't know. Maybe they're missing the condiments. I don't know if they're missing, I think they got the meat and the cheese, but they're missing the mayo.
Condiments, the
mayo's
veggies.
Missing.
They're missing the mayonnaise, the Dijon mustard.
Yeah.
The tomatoes with salt. All these.
But yeah, I agree. Again, they needed to do more, or not need to, but I would have wanted them to do more to really flesh out the world. And that would have made the movie so much better. And they seem to just, chop out 20 minutes, but that didn't make the movie bad on my side of things and my perspective.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's fair, man. Yeah, I just felt like there was just so much missing, and it frustrated me. I wanted there to be more. I wanted there to be more explanation and more background. And again, I think where it really comes down to it is during the scenes as well with so like Janet refuses to tell her, Hope and Hank what's going on, even though she has like plenty of opportunities to be like, hey, like we're in like significant danger. There's a bad bloke here. I'll fill you in when we get it a second, but I should at least tell you this little bit of information that we are in danger. Something is out to kill us, and we need to get the fuck out of here. But she's kind of missing that. She's just like, we just need to leave. I'm not going to tell you anything. And her daughter is getting frustrated at her about this because me as the viewer, I was getting frustrated. I'm just like, just fucking tell them already. Just give that little bit of information, because this is, you're in the thick of it. You're not keeping them safe. You're not putting them in a position that they are more likely to escape. You're actually making it more difficult for them to get out. They don't know what they're up against. They're just kind of going in blind. And then, they're like, okay, hide from these weird guard things, all of that sort of stuff. And then they go to the bar or whatever. And then they meet Bill Murray's character. And then Bill Murray is like, oh, you don't even know what your mom's about. And she's lying to you. And although Hope is literally telling her, like, or saying to her mom, like, why aren't you telling us stuff? Like, you're lying to me. She immediately is like, Bill Murray, you're lying. You're lying to me about this, even though
It's
I
because again,
believe
she's
you.
defending her mother. She's defending her mom, right?
Yeah.
That's the reason she's doing that, is because she may argue with her mom, but she's not going to do that in public. She's not going to air the dirty laundry. That's the idea. She's going to trust her mom more than a random guy who seems like a bit of a sleazeball. So that's kind of the reasoning there.
Yeah.
And I think that
someone that could be her stepfather, arguably, because they definitely banged.
Yeah, I feel like Janet, though, I really do feel like, although she is a frustrating character to watch, she's doing this at a place of protecting herself more than her family. She feels very guilty about the fact that she left the quantum realm in the state that she did, and she's embarrassed by it to a point where she almost feels like she's not a good person. And that's the vibe I got for the reasoning for why she didn't tell them in time. It is frustrating to watch. Like, what are you doing? Just tell them. And at the same time, there was not that many moments in which you can spend like 20 to 30 minutes trying to defend yourself and as to why you made the decisions that you made. So I'm wondering if maybe that seems to be the reasoning that I have. I don't know. I don't really care that much. That didn't bother me, because she did tell them when it eventually, like, if she didn't tell them in the ship, when she told him, I would have been like, nah, that's garbage. But she told them at a point where I'm like, I believe it. She had to tell them at this point. She put them in danger. She realized her mistake. She's got to own up. That was the idea. I'm okay with it. It was fine. It's okay. It's annoying. She becomes off a little bit annoying because of that.
Very much so.
It's fine for me. Yeah. It's fine for me, though. Because again, it's not a flaw of the story. It's a flaw of the character. And that I can't fault the movie for that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I get where you're coming from. For me, I find the flaws in the movie because of this character's choices and motivation. To me, it just doesn't make sense. And I get your argument where she's, she's maybe upset about what she's done and she's worried that she might be a bad person. But you're in a situation where your kid and your husband can die. I think you can swallow your pride there and keep your family safe and just be like, hey, this is what's going on. But yeah, like, again, even on the ship, when they are on the ship, it's literally Hope like nagging at her mom, like, you have to freaking tell us. And Janet's just like giving them the silent treatment. And I was sitting there just frustrated. I'm like, just fucking tell them, dude. Like, you need to. And then she kind of goes into the conversation where she does tell them. She tells them everything. And I feel like this is where the show don't tell should have come into play. But I feel like it was a lot of tell, not show.
They showed a flashback.
They did, but it wasn't that in depth. I feel like what they should have done is create a longer extended flashback.
There was no telling. There was no explanation. It was just a flashback. So it's literally showing.
No, she was telling them about it. There was multiple scenes where she's just talking, and I guess like she's also kind of narrating over those flashback scenes. And I feel like the flashbacks should have been extended. It should have been more, because what they needed to do is they should have showed the relationship, almost this friendship between Janet and King that has built over however many years, because I don't know what the time frame is. It's kind of confusing. And also, they should have showed them interacting with all the other quantum people to, again, give more depth to these characters that we know very little about, that are essentially tertiary characters. So when they're like, oh, like, this is what she did, to me, with that flashback, it seemed like that Janet and King were secluded from the civilization. They didn't interact with anyone. They were there by the ship the entire time, and then they fixed the ship, and then she dipped out. It doesn't...
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. It seemed like there was a part missing, for sure.
Very much.
Here's what I'll say for the show not tell thing. Most of this movie is show. It's action, 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 action. It's nonstop. It's consistent all the time. All the time. It barely stops. Telling in that moment, in those moments of voiceover over a flashback, I think worked very well on a pacing perspective. I don't know that I disagreed with you on the podcast, like 106.
Yeah.
I disagree with you here. The show not tell thing, I disagree completely. Did they miss out on context? Did they not have enough information? Could she have told more? Yes, she could have gone into more. She could have had more detail. There could have been better flashbacks, more context on the quantum realm, as I said before. I don't think it's an issue of too much exposition. That exposition is not what this movie didn't have enough talking. There's not enough moments of calm. It's too quick. I wanted something like Age of Ultron, that cabin scene. That's what I wanted. There's that moment of calm. It's like I think a 10 minute to 20 minute, probably 10 minutes portion of Avengers Age of Ultron where all the Avengers go to that cabin and they're kind of just, it's like a calm before the storm.
Yeah,
Amazing.
yeah,
I
I love
wanted
that.
something like that. I don't think we got enough of that in this movie. And that, I mean, that has nothing to do with show and tell. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. I still maintain my disagreement on the show not tell argument you had on episode 106. But
yeah, fair enough, brother. But yeah, I just wanted them to show more, and I think again, you just have to kind of fill in the blanks, which to me was a little bit frustrating and annoying because you could have added an extra half hour to this movie, like without any issue. You made a fucking 3.5 hour long movie with Avatar 2. You know what I mean? Like just take 45 minutes out of that movie and add it to this Ant-Man movie, and then we would have had probably 2 significantly better movies, realistically. So that was a little bit frustrating. On the topic of Kang, I guess, I feel like killing him off at the end of this movie. I assume he was killed off. Originally, Hope Van Dyne, jumps back into the quantum realm when everyone's like trying to leave, and then Kang is, trying to get out, and Paul Rudd's Ant-Man is like, no, you can't go. I'm going to stay here and die as opposed to let you destroy my Earth. And then eventually Hope comes back, and then they kick him into this weird, like one of his technology pieces, and he like goes into a portal thing. When that happened, I was like, oh, maybe he's alive. Maybe he's going to come out some point in the future or whatever. But then they do the after credit scene where it's all of them hanging out, all the other Kangs, and they're like, oh, they killed him. I was like, what? This guy literally just said that he killed trillions of people. Like, they say that he killed trillions of people. He stopped countless revolutions, and somehow he lost this one to a bunch of ants. Why? How are
thousands of ants that are thousands of years old that are giant?
Yeah, but then what?
I think Thanos would have been just beaten by the ants. Like, he wasn't killed.
I don't think so. But
I think so.
For me,
unless he had the glove. Like, if he had the Infinity Gauntlet, no. But neither did Kang. Didn't have the Infinity Gauntlet. We don't know what Kang can do even at this point. And he's like, he was just overwhelmed because it was surprising. The movie does what it does the best is it's move into comedy. It's move into the weird and the strange, like Rick and Morty vibe type comedy.
Yeah, like with MODOK in particular.
Yeah, it makes Ant-Man kind of quirky. Paul Rudd's a comic relief character. That's his job in this particular world. Sorry, Ant-Man is a comic relief character in this particular Marvel Cinematic Universe, and that's what he brings to this. And so they're quirky, like love of ants, like Hank Pym's love of ants. Michael Douglas was great in this, by the way. I found that his moments to shine, he's shown. And so was Michelle Pfeiffer as Janet too, but I know you're frustrated with her character. Mm-hmm. But when Hank Pym brings these like ants from that crazy civilization, it's like 1,000-year-old ants. Like, what's going on? Like, it's not 1,000-year-old ants, but this 1,000-year-old civilization of ants come in with their army to defeat him. He's probably like, what the shit is happening? And then his tech gets all messed up. That's the only way he lost. He would have won, theoretically. He was winning that fight. I don't know. I think it's just it moves a lot into the weird, and that's what makes this movie good. Is that and I know on episode 106 you said that Avatar was a better movie. Avatar: The Way of Water was a better movie than this.
I still stand by that.
Right. My argument is it's not a better movie because of the fact that movie takes itself so seriously and it believes that its plot is the shit. It seems like it does anyway. Mm-hmm. The visuals are fantastic in Avatar: The Way of Water, but the plot is it's another
let's just
rehash.
Say the 3D and like going into this movie's 3D versus Avatar's 3D, it's a night and day difference. Like,
that's not what it's going for. Yeah. I would have watched it not in 3D if I could have. Mm-hmm. That's not a knock on the movie for sure, but for me, because I just don't care about 3D at all. But yeah, like that's kind of what I was saying though about Avatar, is that it takes itself too seriously. It's not a comedy. This movie is supposed to be a comedy. It's supposed to be lighthearted, entertainment. It's supposed to kind of make you laugh. That's the idea. And then it's got the serious Jonathan Majors, who does an amazing performance, by the way. Yeah. And so that's kind of where I think the movie's good. It's the blend of comedy and drama. But I agree in terms of the credits. Like, I think that the end credits scene, he got defeated, which I thought he was just defeated temporarily. It was an accident. He got pushed into his own technology, right?
Yeah.
But then that mid-credit scene was showing all these Kangs at this conference, and they made it sound like he was gone forever, and I'm not understanding why.
They made it sound like he died, and that he was like, there was a reason he was exiled. All the other Kangs feared him. Like, why establish this villain only to kill him off?
Yeah.
Fairly easily, and then have a bunch of these other Kangs that are like, oh, I'm terrified of him. what, like they all could have killed him. But if they were worried about killing this version of Kang, but 1,000 ants could fucking beat him up, it's just, it makes me not
But he didn't lose to the ants. He got distracted, right?
Yeah, fair enough. But it for me, it's just, it makes the threat of all these additional Kangs way less, I guess, like intense. Like, I don't know, it's way less fearful. I think what they did with Thanos, like kind of teasing him multiple times, like the first time at the end of Avengers, where it's just like, fine, I'll do it myself, and he grabs the Infinity Gauntlet, and you're like, oh shit, who the fuck's this guy? You know what I mean? Like, you have this slower burn, and you're introducing this like big bad who ends up being a fucking awesome villain, you know, in the later movies. With this, you know, we were introduced to a version of Kang in like a different show, and then we're introduced to this Kang, but you've killed off the 2 established Kangs that we've had. And then now you're showing like hundreds or thousands of other Kangs that I have no idea who these guys are. I have no idea what they're about. I don't know if they were afraid of this one guy, like why are these guys the threat? And I think that's kind of a lack of a foresight in this film. I don't know why you have to create such awesome, compelling villains only to kill them off. I think Marvel's had this issue for a while. I think starting specifically with
Thanos, to be fair, the Thanos in Endgame is a variant.
That is true.
Fair,
that is true.
He?
Yeah, because they fucking chop off his head, which was badass as shit. But yeah, like I don't know, like he still won at the end of Infinity War, though. You know what I mean? There still is all that playing out. I don't know.
Yeah, well, from the beginning of that saga, since I guess Iron Man 1 until Infinity War, it's the same guy.
Yeah,
but yeah, like I agree with you. Again, the mid-credit scene is to me made the movie worse for me. I just don't understand why you have to introduce all these characters at the end of every end credit scene. Like they keep doing this with Charlize Theron, with like Harry Styles. They keep introducing these characters, these actors to be characters at the end of these various Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, and they just don't seem to tie up the loose ends. And I thought that Kang the Conqueror was the big bad villain. Like he's the variant that we're supposed to be worried about.
Exactly.
And yet they're introducing these other versions. It's like, I don't think you need to, like, don't introduce the other versions here. Introduce them somewhere else so I don't have more questions than I have answers. Because I have way more questions now. Because the Ant-Man, the way it ends, the way this movie ends, Ant-Man, like Scott Lang is narrating, right? And he's talking about how he's unsure whether he defeated King the Conqueror. It's like, and I now don't know whether he defeated him in a way that's, I don't know, almost worse. It was an untethered, like it was a loose end at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
But then they did the mid-credit scene. It's like, oh, you actually have infinite number of these badass humans that exist, or whatever they are, badass people that exist in the universes, in the multiverse, that can now wreak havoc. Or are they not bad? I don't know, but I don't want any more loose ends. It's too much.
Yeah,
it's too much.
Unclear.
Just make. I would have preferred Kang was just alive and they escaped. They just see him at the end of the movie. The end credit scene was he escaped the ants easily, and they escaped the quantum realm to go back to Earth, the regular Earth.
Yeah, and
then he's just alive, stuck down there. You know, shaking his fist like, no, don't
why
do that.
I ought to get back to you. I would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for you meddling kids, he would have said out loud.
Exactly. That would have been perfect. But yeah, that's, again, this mid-credit scene, and they got to stop doing this. The land credit scene with Owen Wilson and Tom Hiddleston and
the tease for
Jonathan
Loki.
Majors, that's a great teaser, because what it's doing is it's pulling in concepts that we know before and using concepts that we know are going into Loki season 2. And that's a teaser that I'm looking forward to.
Me too.
This mid-credit scene is like, I don't understand. Did we just watch the villain we're going to be watching for the rest of phase 5 and 6 in Kang the Conqueror? Or are we watching, is somehow 1,000 people the villain? I don't know, like, you know, more than that. I don't know how many of these Kangs go to this conference. I don't know. So I don't like the mid-credit
conference.
Scene.
The Kang conference.
The Kang conference.
They spell conference with a K as well.
Yeah, Kang. The Kang the Conferencer. That's the leader of the conference.
Exactly.
He's the MC.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. That I agree with. Yeah. Like it's funny. We agree on a lot of what we believe to be not great about this movie, but our scores are wildly not matched
Yeah,
up. And
I think I
I
weigh
just don't.
things differently. Like I think we agree on a lot of this movie. Actually, it's kind of funny, but it's just I weighed the importance of these things a little bit differently than you. So it's
Right.
kind of interesting because, yeah, like, again, I think we can also both agree the green screen slash CGI slash the thing that they use in The Mandalorian, it looked off at times. I think I feel like there were points where people didn't really know like where they were. It's tough to act, I imagine, in front of just green, and I still
Well,
think
it's
there was a
not
lot
green.
of,
It's the Mandalorian screen. That's the point of that
oh yeah,
screen
fair
exists.
point. But
Well,
yeah,
which one did they use? Do you know?
I have no clue. I thought this was one of the
Okay.
first movies where they did use those like projection screen things or whatever, but it's still just
The reason they do that
felt
is for the
off.
context for the actors. It's
Yeah.
for them to know spatially where they are in the scene. I think that's the point of that.
Which I find is odd because I feel like there was very little spatial awareness. I feel like it was harder to know where characters were standing in the context of where another character was standing and where they were looking. It just seemed not well put together, in my personal opinion. And I almost argue maybe that's because they cut out a lot of in between moments between these characters. I don't know, but yeah, I wasn't really a fan of that. There's still some great performances though, despite that the heaviness of the CGI and green screen, possibly projection screen usage. That's
my CG criticism is more, it just doesn't look real enough with the context of like, what do they eat and where do they live? Where do they like, where does this population, like, actually, how do they lead proper lives?
Mm-hmm.
That's my issue with it in conjunction with the CG. I think if the CG was the same as it was and they put more contextual scenes, I would have preferred the movie more. Like, I would have liked it more. But I still recommend this movie. It's funny, if you look at the Rotten Tomatoes score and you look at the reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, like the hundreds of reviews from professional critics, a lot of them are just kind of superhero fatigued. They're like, why does this movie exist? Like, why do we have this? Like, what's the point? Like, it's a lot of that, honestly. Some of them mention the CG too. But it's a lot of that, which I find interesting because I think they're just looking for No Way Home kind of surprises. They want to have an end game level event every single time now. Even, honestly, Black Panther Wakanda Forever, it should be reviewed better than Black Panther, like the first Black Panther.
I agree.
But Chadwick Boseman is a star. I love Chadwick Boseman, and that he was a missing piece of that movie. But they made the fact that he was missing from Black Panther Wakanda Forever like the centerpiece of the movie. It revolved around that in a way, and it did it in such a competent, amazing way. It did a great job. It's a better movie, again, than the first one. The first one's like a 90-something% on Rotten Tomatoes. That's
it was a fucking Oscar-nominated Best Picture movie for whatever reason,
right?
Man. Like, yeah.
Right. And so that's the crazy thing, is that now at this late stage of Marvel Cinematic Universe, like, they just expect like crazy stuff. Like when I watched Eternals and I left the theater, I was like, how is this a 50, whatever it was at the time, 50% of Rotten Tomatoes
now as well.
It was, but I think when we went to it, it was like 52 or something like that.
Yeah, I was like,
what is? Yeah, it was good. It was fine. It wasn't amazing. It's not my favorite Marvel
it's like
Cinematic Universe film.
It's middle of the pack,
right? And neither is this one, but I still like it, and I'm not expecting it to be a No Way Home. I expected it to be a comedy that would make me laugh, and it did. It made me laugh out loud, like. The weird, gooey red guy is hilarious. Like, freaking MODOK. I was unexpected.
Awesome.
I didn't see that coming. That it was going to be that gentleman. Like, it was Darren.
Yeah,
I like how they keep calling him Darren.
Darren.
And the moment where he calls him Darren, doesn't call him MODOK, and he doesn't answer. Come on, it's great.
There were
just supposed to be
there were some funny moments,
but
I think that's what this movie definitively did better than Thor: Love and Thunder, is that it knew when to use comedy as, like, to keep people attached to the screen. And again, I think this movie was quite funny. I think there were moments that were really funny, and I think MODOK was definitely the like, for me, the funniest moments, because the CG is so bad, but it adds to like this absurdity. And again, when he's like dying at the end of the movie, being like, Scott, I always thought of you as a brother. And it's like, what? And even just like, at least I die an Avenger, like things like that. I thought it was hilarious. That was really well done. But again, I think, everything else really dragged it down for me. I wanted to like this movie, because when I didn't look at any reviews. I actually haven't read any reviews of this movie other than yours that you spoke out to me. Uh, but yeah, like when I saw the Rotten Tomato score, I was like, well, like, maybe people are just bitter. Like I still really liked Eternals, and that was rated poorly. So I went in expecting that if I don't like this, it's because of the Thor Love and Thunder thing where it's comedy, 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 can't take itself seriously, and that wasn't the issue. For me, it was just missing context. It was missing a half-hour piece of where you could make this, in my personal opinion, bad movie into something genuinely great. I think that played a large factor in me, rating it so poorly.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay. Well, my review score stays the same, Adrian. I'm a 3.5 out of 5 on this one.
Yeah, mine is staying the same as well. 1.5 out of 5, brother.
So we land at a 5 out of 10 for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. I thank you for joining me, Adrian, for this a closer look.
I thank you for
thank
letting
you,
me
audience,
join you.
for joining us. Sorry?
I thank you for letting me join you.
Oh, you're welcome. And an audience, thank you for joining us. See you on the next one. Goodbye.
Take care. Goodbye.